Hello and welcome to the West Point Lake Update Report. My name is Dave Barr, Park Ranger with the Corps of Engineers at West Point Lake. And we are here in River Trace Subdivision. We're going to talk about the shoreline management plan and the permit process you have to go to. If you live adjacent to the lake, you can get a variety of different permits, such as a boat dock, underbrushing permit, a variety of these permits to give you safe access to the lake and enjoy the benefits of West Point Lake. My guest that I have on the program is Park Ranger Samantha Walker, and she's here, and she actually manages the West Point Project Shoreline Permit Program and the Shoreline Management Plan. And Sam, welcome to the program. It's good to have you back again. You've been a regular guest. You're just a wealth of information. But we have a lot of information we want to talk about and let our viewers try to understand about this permit process and how this works. Tell me a little bit about the Shoreline Management Plan and what are your responsibilities with that?
Well, basically the management plan, the Shoreline Management Plan, is just a plan that we have developed specifically for West Point Project to manage the public lands and waters around the lake.
Okay.
We've got 26,000 acres of water and 30,000 acres of land, so we've got a lot to manage. And we try to manage it so that the private landowners who are adjacent to the property, of course the general public, excuse me, and also the wildlife all benefit from the way we manage it, and then it's also preserved for future generations also.
Sure, that's right. And you know, we keep referencing public land. This is land that the Corps of Engineers manages here, which surrounds West Point Lake. And you know, it's important for people to remember definitely that this is federal land, and it's just like if you live next door to an adjacent landowner. So you need to respect the rights of the other landowner. So let's get started, Sam. Let's say I buy a house on West Point Lake, and I have I live right next to the lake here, and I have this beautiful wooded lot. Let's talk about the permit process. What kind of permits can I get, and I know we've talked about shoreline allocations. How does that all work?
All right, the lake it's divided into three different allocations, three different types. There's the limited development, and that's the one that allows the most type of permitting.
Sure.
And that takes up about 25% of the shoreline. Okay. And that's the one where people can come or we can come out and meet with them, and they can get a dock permit, an underbrushing permit, water and electric line, underground water and electric lines, several different options. But there's also protected areas. The shoreline that's allocated is protected. And the reason we protect them is to make sure that we don't have people-animal conflicts, so that we do save part of the lake for the wildlife. Okay. And then there's also some areas that just aren't suitable for docks. So the protected areas, the only thing we allow there is a 5-foot pathway down to the lake. And then there's also areas allocated as recreation areas, and of course those are our parks that we have, either current parks or they're set aside for future parks. And we don't allow any type of permitting there.
Activity there.
Right.
Okay. So what's one of the most popular permitted activities that we have here at the lake?
The docks, of course, are the most popular. Everybody wants a dock.
About how many permits do we currently have out there for boat docks?
We've got over 900 permits right now.
Okay. Wow.
Not all of them for boat docks. I'm not sure exactly how many are docks, but we've got over 900 shoreline management permits
around here. Okay. Now, a little bit about a dock. What's the smallest size dock you can have, and maybe the largest size dock?
The smallest dock that we allow is an 8-foot by 8-foot platform dock.
Okay.
And of course, that's not including the walkway.
Sure.
The largest dock we allow would be 720 square feet.
Okay.
And so that's a pretty good size dock, but that actually becomes a boat shelter that would be required to have a roof on it.
Okay.
And then there's also the length that the docks can be. The walkway and the dock combined can be a maximum of 100-foot length, like from out into the lake, from the shoreline out into the lake. Or if they're in a cove that's a little bit smaller, we only do a third the width of the cove, or a third the width of the cove, whichever is less, so 100 foot or a third the width of the cove. And
the reason for that is so it won't be a navigation hazard if boats are out here, because at nighttime, as you know, it can be pretty dark here on West Point Lake. Okay, we've added some new things about the dock permit. You have to add reflectors on there, as well as what other things are we telling permittees to add to the dock?
We also require that they put their address on the dock. Okay. And those are the two new things. And the reason for that is because if somebody's out on the lake and there's an accident, they may need to call 911.
Sure.
And when people are out on this lake, it's got so many little fingers and everything,
Sure.
people don't know where they're at.
Okay.
But if there's a dock close by, they can look and they can say, oh, well, we just had a boat accident and I see a dock that says, and they'll rattle off the address,
Sure.
and 911 knows exactly where to go to find them.
Okay, so I buy this piece of property and it's adjacent to West Point Lake, so I give you a call and say, hey Sam, I'd like to see if I could get a permit, and so you would come out and meet with me, right? And we'd do the permit application, and I think first thing you would do is find out what allocated area I have.
Exactly.
And then let's say it is limited development, so I say, okay, I'd like to have a dock and an underbrushing permit. Let's talk a little bit about the underbrushing permit. What all does that entail?
The underbrushing permit allows people to basically to safely access the lake. For somebody who, well, basically we allow people to cut anything that's 5 inches diameter or smaller at the base of the tree, but they are required to leave the native ornamentals, which are like our maples, our dogwoods, azaleas, hollies, magnolias, just things like that. And then we also require an 8-foot spacing between the trees.
Okay.
And that way we don't have a clear cut out here, basically.
Sure.
And then they can also limb the trees 10 foot high or a third the height of the tree, whichever is less.
Okay. So that's pretty much just to kind of thin out the understory, the weeds and so forth.
Right.
Again, like you say, just for safe access down here to the shoreline. Now, what's the approximate distance, would you say, from the property line down to the shoreline on average?
It varies all the way around the lake, but it averages about 300 feet.
300
but
feet.
It depends on the terrain.
Okay. So if I was to do some weed eating, that'd be a lot of work, wouldn't it?
It definitely would be a lot of maintenance.
But I'm sure a lot of people, you know, like to get that openness where they can get down to the shoreline. Have we had a problem, Sam, in the past with people clear cutting a lot?
We haven't had a lot of problems, but we have had some.
Or people who cut too many trees?
Right. Some people don't have a permit at all and just think they can go down there and just do whatever they want.
Okay.
And we've had somebody not long ago that actually did a clear cut
without
a permit.
Sure.
And then
What
there's
happens
also,
in that case?
in the case like that, we'd actually have our forester come out and do a investigation, basically a timber cruise.
Okay.
And we actually have to count the stumps.
Sure.
And determine what kind of tree it was and determine what the fair market value of those trees would have been, which can oftentimes lead up into the hundreds of thousands.
Sure.
And then we can go and we can charge the landowner for that value, whatever we determined it was, or it can even become, if it's serious enough, we can do imprisonment. So,
Okay. Wow. Well, let's hope we don't do that.
yeah, I hope it never comes to that.
Yeah, but you know, I could see how things could get out of hand. So like you say, you keep referring back to the permit, and it's always important. If you're going to do anything on public land, you need to have a permit for it, and it needs to be approved from a ranger. Now, today, look, we're on site. The homeowner's property here, he actually had a tree that was leaning towards his dock and was kind of a hazard there, and so the homeowner wanted, you know, that tree removed. How, you know, if I had a hazard tree, how would I go about that?
All you need to do is call into the office and ask to speak to one of the rangers, a shoreline management ranger.
Okay.
And just tell us what you're needing. We'll come out, we'll take a look at the tree, and if it is determined that it is a safety hazard of some kind, if it's dying or diseased, then we can go ahead and we'll mark it for them, and then they can cut it down.
Okay.
After it's been all approved. And of course we mark that in the file, because one thing I tell people, a lot of people are saying, well, you know, it's dead, why can't I just go ahead and cut it down?
Sure.
Well, if I come out here 2 weeks later and I see the stump, I can't tell if it was alive or dead. So we want to make sure to mark them so that we can mark it in the file.